Hi everybody, thank you for the introduction and thank you for the invitation. Before I start, I would like just to say that my presentation is in 3 parts and I have the habit to say BnF instead of the National Library of France. Okay. When I was a student, I wrote an essay on the challenges of opening qualitative data in social sciences. And for that research, I conducted several interviews, including one that left a lasting impression on me. The interviewee said how easy it was to create data today, thanks to our phone and other technological devices, leading to an overwhelming amount of data and the increasing difficulty of processing it. While he was not opposed to publishing data online for other researchers, he actually has done it before. He expressed a concern that has resonated with me ever since. The fear of all of this data that took time and work to be open, the fear of all of this data becoming a cemetery of data never used, merely occupying space on servers. So how does this all apply to the BnF's digital collections? Well, I have 2 words to describe them: massiveness and variety. And this is only going to increase because of the evolution of our legal deposit, our digital legal deposit, and our experimentations with dematerialized documents. But I feel like maybe I've lost you right here. So please let me explain to you for a tiny bit what is the BnF and what collections do we have. Let me make this centuries-long story very short, and I hope my colleagues are going to forgive me. Once upon a time, I was in front of a class of students and I asked them, what can you find at the BnF? And the only answers I got were archives, mainly archives, and manuscripts. And honestly, a few years ago, I would not have done better. I would have said books, just books. And at the BnF, we do have books, archives, and manuscripts, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. The history of the BnF is quite long and complex, but we have books about it if you like. So for the sake of the presentation, I'm just going to stick about a few key details about legal deposit. Legal deposit is the main source of our growing collections, even though we do have acquisitions, donations, and bequests. It all started with King François I in 1537, and it applies to all documents produced and published in France, no matter the language. There needs to be a copy at the BnF or another institution that receives legal deposit as well. Legal deposit has evolved through the years to include new media and format. And you can see some key dates on the screen. So legal deposit includes books, periodicals such as newspapers, but also a map from the 19th century, a Panini book from 10 years ago, and the latest Beyoncé album. Maybe I've got some video game fans, Netflix aficionados, and music lovers in the audience, and we're all going to take us back a few years ago, when it was the good old days of DVDs and CDs. But do you know how much of the content is now dematerialized? If so, you may understand the ongoing discussion at the BnF right now to make another evolution in our legal deposit to include this new format. So we're thinking about new methods for legal deposits, a way to catalog them, because again, it's quite massive, and a way to make them accessible for researchers. Because the role of the BnF is to build, catalog, and conserve this national heritage while ensuring the broadest possible access to the collections. It's a place of study and research. And the BnF Data Lab was designed with the same goal, to facilitate the access to the digital collections, considering the rising of digital humanities, the collections as data approach, and the unique difficulties of building digital corpora. I wanted to do that short story about the BnF because it is hard to understand the BnF Data Lab without understanding the BnF itself. The BnF needs a huge number of people to fulfill its goals, So we are each divided into departments, and each department develops its own expertise about its collections or its missions. They also create tools and they participate into larger projects. It is kind of impressing the number of projects going on at the BnF right now. So the BnF Data Lab is part of that ecosystem of collections and tools. And now, it's not the best way to promote a lab, but I'm going to tell you what we don't do, what is not part of a scope, and what other departments do. We don't digitize documents, and we don't handle any kind of digital collections. The core of the BnF Data Lab team is part of a department called Discovery of Collections and Research Support. This department offers a wide range of research support, including the BnF Data Lab, but that's not the only one. We also have Ask a Librarian service, a 1-hour workshop with a librarian so it can help you with your research, a dedicated workshop for PhD students, and training sessions for the catalog, Gallica, and digital resources. I'm telling you because you might need those services at some point, but also to really highlight the fact that the BnF Data Lab is part of a larger ecosystem. Now, I'm not going to tell you about all the collections and the research rooms we manage as a department, because this is not the main part of the presentation, but I thought it would be interesting to talk about one room in particular. It's in François Mitterrand, and it's called the X Room, and it's dedicated to bibliographic research. And I want to tell you the story, a tiny bit of the story of that room, because the BnF Data Lab is not only a coordination of services, it's also a dedicated space. And this space is in this room. Part of this collection of this room comes from the catalog room in Richelieu. Now, you may have seen Richelieu at least this summer because it was part of the opening ceremony during the Olympics. Fun fact, all the books that they showed during this video, they're not part of that room, not part of this collection. I would have liked to add that no books were armed during that sequence, but I don't know. So this is not the catalog room. The catalog room does not exist anymore, but it used to be an essential stop for readers to find the references they needed for their documents before the catalog was digitized. And even today, we think of our rooms most of the times as starting point for readers. They start their research with us, and then they go to more specialized rooms, even though we do have our usual readers as well. And usually when my colleagues present this room that we inherited, they describe it as a doorway to the collections of the BnF. And in that sense, the BnF Data Lab is not revolutionary. It's just another doorway, but this time to the digital collections of the BnF. Picture researchers knocking on that door when they want to work with our digital collections. They might want context about our collections, how we digitize, or what format or metadata they're going to find. Their research project could involve different or multiple digital collections, or it could span multiple collections departments. Instead of knocking on every door or getting lost in the maze, that's still a possibility, they knock on one door, our door, and we are responsible for coordinating and finding the right colleagues to help them to answer their needs. But I'm going to be a bit more concrete now with an example from our press collections. The press is part of our national heritage, including both physical and digital documents. Since the 17th century, it has been growing thanks to legal deposits, and as of 2018, it includes more than 200,000 titles, including national press, local press, regional press, and various kinds of magazines. You may also find at the BnF related collections, such as original drawings and photography. Now, at the end of the presentation, I hope it would be clearer for you what kind of digital collections we have at the BnF. And I thought for a very long time how to present them to you without being too long. And so I'm going to use a scenario very familiar for people in France trying to speak English during classes, and it's "Where is Brian?" scenario. And this time, Brian is Léon Marchand, because I'm still recovering from the Olympics. So, where is Brian? Brian is not in the kitchen this time, but he's at his desk in front of his computer, and he wants to find out if we have a particular title of newspapers. He's going to go to our general catalog, is going to search for it, and is going to find where he can access it. But he could also do broader research, such as what newspapers we have, what magazines we have about literature from a certain period of time, or what newspapers we have in a certain language. He could extract all of this data with more or less details, depending on how knowledgeable you are with the cataloging at the BnF, in a CSV format. He could also do that research on data.bnf.fr, which is the BnF data reservoir, bringing together data from various reservoirs at the BnF. What I want to say with this part is that metadata it might be obvious for you, but it's part of our digital collections now. It's a tool to find resources, but it's also a subject of study in itself, as we've seen at the BnF Data Lab multiple times. And I just wanted to add, if you're interested in finding local newspapers before 1945, we also have a great website called Presse Locale Ancienne that you might want to check out. But maybe Brian doesn't want to go to the research library to read the newspapers, or maybe he's not interested in one title in particular, but more interested in a theme, a personality, and he doesn't want to scan manually thousands of articles. Digitization has transformed the relationship we have with the press collections and opened up new research possibilities. But for the BnF, digitization is also a way to preserve these very fragile collections that are sometimes kept in they are sometimes in bad quality paper and in bad conservation state. And when we digitize documents, they go to Gallica. I don't know if you've heard of Gallica, but Gallica is the digital library of the BnF and its partners. And if you're interested in building a corpus from Gallica, you may need to understand the history of digitization at the BnF. Gallica was launched 30 years ago already. It was first thought as a reference collection, and only after the BnF put in place massive digitization. And then they also made partnerships with other institutions through France to help them digitize their own documents. But there are several types of contracts with these institutions. Some of their documents are going to be only referenced in Gallica, and others are going to be fully integrated into Gallica, and you're going to be able to use them in your corpus. We also have Retro News for newspapers. It's managed by BnF Partenariat and was launched in 2012 to speed up digitization. It offers free access to 2,000 titles of newspapers, even though you do have to pay a subscription if you want to access some exclusive content and some more specialized tools. All the titles of Retro News are referenced in Gallica, and they are generally available in Gallica Intramuros. Gallica Intramuros is also a digital library, but this one has all the content Gallica has, but has also copyrighted materials and author restrictions documents. So why do we characterize Gallica by this variety? Because in Gallica, you're going to find a wide range of documents. So you're going to find music, newspapers, novels, posters, drawings, costumes, very different types of objects and documents. You're going to have different modes of consultation, different format and metadata, and also different digitization quality. Some of the images, for example, are going to be in black and white because the digitization was made based on the microfilm and not the original paper. You also have the access, you may have access to the text of the newspapers, or you may not have access to the text of the newspapers. Approximately 75% of the newspapers in Gallica has associated texts. And now, in this, it may look like there are a lot of newspapers in Gallica. It looks very massive in front of all of the other documents, but you need to know that only 4% of the press collections of the BnF has been digitized. So that's not a lot. But this number is going to grow in the coming years thanks to a major digitization project. One of the recurring problems at the BnF is space. Because we have legal deposit, we cannot get rid of any of the documents we receive through legal deposit. So we are building a new building in Amiens, which is another city in France, and this is also there they plan to create the National Press Conservatory. But before moving the press collections from Paris to Amiens, they want to digitize a significant number of titles based on a list of priorities they constituted. What you need to understand is that maybe the press used to be overlooked by the BnF, but this is not the case anymore. For a few decades now, they have trying to digitize the more and more newspapers because in a way to save them, it's also important for the Ministry of Culture. So the BnF is really interested in all the research projects we could have around digitized newspapers. It's part of one of the major objectives in the contract of objective and performance of the BnF from 2022 to 2026. But let's go back to Brian. If Brian wants to read the newspapers that was produced after 1953, he's going to need to go to the research library to consult in Gallica Intramuros. And it's also the case for another kind of collections, which is the Internet archives. And, so the websites are part of our legal deposit since 2006. And since 2010, we have downloaded 90 titles of press online, including national press and news dedicated sites. What is particular about that collection, it's fully indexed, so you can search with keywords. It's not the case for the entirety of the Internet Archives collections, but I don't really have the time to explain it to you, all the details about this collection or all the tools that were developed. Maybe another time, you can contact us if you need. So I have presented to you 3 kinds of digital collections, but we have so many more. So these are some of the examples. What you need to understand is that each of these collections has their own history, format, metadata, and tools. The digitization didn't erase the complexities of the documents, it only added more. There are tools and services developed by the BnF. For example, for Gallica, we have API services, IIIF, and what we called a research report that could help you build your corpus or scan more easily a list of results from Gallica. But also tools developed by researchers like Gallica Rahmen or notebooks. We also keep some datasets produced during research projects, and you may find them on a website called api.bnf.fr. So if Brian wanted to download a very specific title that was already correct, which the text was already corrected during a research project, he could go to that website and download this version instead of going to Gallica. But of course, Brian needs to know about it. So this is what it's bringing me to the next part of my presentation, how the BnF Data Lab can help you. I have depicted the BnF Data Lab as a doorway, very poetic, but not very specific. So what do we offer exactly? Well, we offer flexible research support. The most important step for us is the first one, where we meet you, we talk about your research project and your needs. We don't have a one-size-fits-all approach. We will give you the answers you need if we have them. We can help you build your corpus, avoiding the biases created by our collections history, who helps you discover hidden gems we have in our collections that could widen your research. We give you context about our collections and guidance about our format and metadata, so you're not stuck trying to figure it out on your own. We can provide you with the files you need, or we can show you how to download them by yourself if you can. You cannot do it if it's Gallica Intramuros, for example, or if it's the Internet Archives. And finally, we offer, as I said earlier, a dedicated space with group rooms, presentation space, training room, and workstations, and offices. And you might wonder, or maybe not, why offer a dedicated space when everything seems so digital? Well, we have two main reasons for that. The first one is to allow you to conduct text and data mining on copyrighted materials coming from our legal deposit, because the legal deposit is only available in our research library. So we've set up a system, we've come up with a system that ensures both data safety and researcher autonomy. At the BnF Data Lab, you're going to find computers that give you access to virtual machines using Linux. And then there's a switch system. You either have access to your corpus, your copyrighted materials, or you have access to the internet and you can download your tools. But in that case, you don't have access to the corpus. But not everyone needs a virtual machine. Some just need a quiet place to work, or they need a place to hold meetings. And researchers can book those spaces just like they can book other spaces in the research library. They just need to be accredited by us, so they need to contact us before, and then they become Data Lab researchers. And it's also useful for us to have a dedicated space to hold meetings outside of our offices, because generally speaking, the role of the BnF Data Lab is also to centralize the demands. So we have a clearer view of the ongoing projects, so it's easier to draw connections and to develop a strategy as a lab or as a library. The second reason is that we aim to build a community, or perhaps communities, around our digital collections. And for that, we do organize events in our spaces. Events for researchers, engineers, our colleagues, and anyone interested in a specific theme. I'm showing you a few examples from the last few events we had. So hackathons, presentations, training sessions, and workshops. Now, again, not a good way to promote the lab. As a libraries lab, we cannot meet every need. This is why from the very start we have partnered with Humanum. Humanum is a research infrastructure supported by the French National Center for Scientific Research. Their mission complements with ours. They provide assessment, tools, and services on digital research data. They also found national consortia, which are a group of researchers and engineers working on common areas of interest. And we do collaborate with one of them closely. It's Pictoria, which is a consortium dedicated to visual data and AI. They regularly hold one-day event at the BnF regarding the subjects, just like yesterday about distant viewing, and they're organizing an hackathon in December using datasets from the BnF. As I said earlier, we also have offices in the BnF Data Lab space, and it's for researchers in residence, such as the project team called Optic from the Sorbonne University. It's a project team specialized in digital humanities, and they offer workshops and tools on text analysis. And we also help them with some of their projects, such as one called Modern, which is an analysis of the circulation of ideas during the Enlightenment century. And for that, they are going to use our newspapers from the 18th century. So we are providing them with that. And they organized an hackathon last June using that specific data set with the theme Voltaire and the Press. So now, How can you take advantage of our amazing services? Well, if you're interested in our events, you can always subscribe to our mailing lists or check out one blog in particular, but I'm giving you all the details at the end. And if you need our help or if you want to collaborate with us, we offer several types of research support. And there are 2 types of research support because I was wrong when I depicted first the BnF Data Lab as a doorway. Because the BnF Data Lab is all about collaboration, so it could be more like an interface between the library and the research community, a place for exchange and collaboration. And you're going to see that in the 2 types of research support. The first one is an ongoing research support that we provide year-round whenever a researcher needs our help. We help a wide range of researchers, from PhD students to larger projects involving multiple teams. The only requirement that we have is that you use digital documents from the BnF. You can email at datalab@bnf.fr or fill out an online form, and all the services I mentioned earlier are available for that type of research support. The second one is through our annual call for projects launched by the BnF and Humanum. Each year we select a limited number of projects we support from 12 to 18 months based on their innovative technological approach and their scientific merits. They benefit from our expertise and, in some cases, financial help. This is different from the other one because this involves a selection process, a contract with deliverables, and we ask them to participate in the activities of the BnF Data Lab. In the other case, when we help a researcher in our ongoing support, we can see them one time, we can see them during a few months, but they don't have to give us anything at the end. So through that call for projects, it's also a way for us to foster innovation around our digital collections. And right now, you're lucky because there is an open call that's going to end at the end of September. So you still have a few weeks if you'd like to candidate. And then the results are going to be in November, so we could start supporting your project in January 2025 and not 2024. It would be better. I'm going to show you only the titles of the winners that we support this year. 4 of them are about internet archives with a very different approach. One of them is an HDR project on Dunhuang Chinese manuscripts, and the last one is analysis of the discourses around the desire to become a mother, and they're using digitized pregnancy manuals. Because I wanted to talk to you about another winning project, and it was one of the first ones actually. They wanted to work on the transcriptions of parliamentary debates that you can find in specific periodicals, such as Journal officiel de la République française, Débat parlementaire. They wanted to build a consultation platform with it after they have structured and enriched data, but they had a few problems with the OCR they found. With the help of other researchers, they created a pipeline for structured serial data. So it includes, for example, directories from the BnF collections as well. And they've come back this year to talk about another approach they could have with that specific source based on retrieval augmented generation. And so the person using the source, they could ask questions and receive answers. And this project was led by Pierre Vernus and Marie Puren. Now, I've talked to you about the BnF collections, the BnF Data Lab services, and now I'm going to give you some insights about the work we do and how we do it using 3 key values. And these 3 key values, you've already seen them in the website of the KP Lab yesterday. I depicted the BnF Data Lab as a doorway before switching to an interface because the main component of the BnF Data Lab is collaboration. We believe that the exchange of knowledge is mutual between our partners and us, that we bring as much to the table as we do. And this spirit of collaboration is deeply embedded within the BnF itself. The BnF Data Lab team consists of approximately 4 librarians and 1 engineer working part-time at the BnF and part-time at Humanum. Our role is not to be the ultimate experts on all topics, but rather to analyze needs and challenges and determine the best course of action. Each team member has their own expertise, but I think our true strength lies in our ability to assess situations, connect with the right resources and colleagues, and coordinate efforts effectively. For the rest, we do rely on the expertise of our colleagues, working in the collections departments and other departments, and where they have developed their own expertise. Our audience at the BnF Data Lab is not only researchers and engineers, it's also our colleagues. They play a crucial role in supporting research projects and in organizing events with us, and they also participate to our events and training sessions. The BnF Data Lab would not exist without them. And this spirit of collaboration also extends beyond the BnF, and this is why we've partnered with Humanum and why we continue to develop partnerships over the years. But why do we want to collaborate, and why do we are trying to bring together different professionals? Well, our main goal is to foster innovation, both in the research community and at the BnF. The BnF Data Lab, one thing that's, for example, I have a simple example. For example, it's very useful for us to receive direct feedback on our tools and collections so we can refine and develop them accordingly. And usually speaking, the BnF Data Lab has to stay flexible and be open to new ideas and approaches to remain a place of experimentation. And this is bringing me to the next topic, which is AI, as you may have seen. AI has become quite popular lately. We had many events revolved around this theme. But what about the BnF? In 2021, the BnF developed a roadmap exploring the opportunities given by AI and how we could use AI to tackle the unique challenges we face as a library. So there are those big projects you may see on the screen. So we have a positive and forward-thinking approach to AI, aligning with some other approach you may find in other institutions in the GLAM community. There are also some projects conducted by our colleagues, and there is an AI unit overseeing all of these projects. The BnF Data Lab in this roadmap has an important role. We are here to facilitate the experimentation and to maintain strong links with the research communities. But that's one thing to experiment. From the BnF, the next critical step is moving from experimentation to production. For example, it is the case with the image mining in Gallica. We had a prototype called Gallica Pix for some collections in Gallica, and now we want to do that at a larger scale, including all the collections of Gallica, and it could be offered at a wider audience. So we create, we exchange, we produce, but we are still missing one key element: learning. Some days, working for the BnF Data Lab feels like a never-ending puzzle. You have a research idea, amazing, but it might be a bit more difficult than what you think. But the truth is, the BnF Data Lab is all about finding solutions and trying again and again, even when we fail. And this is where our expertise as the BnF Data Lab comes in. We learn so much from helping projects. But here's the thing. Now we support quite a lot of projects. Like, for example, since the beginning of the year, we've supported at least 30 projects without counting the winning projects. And each and a team member is responsible for overseeing one request from the beginning at the end. So how do we make sure that the knowledge our colleague is gaining from helping the project is shared among all members of the team? How do we make sure that we are building on our successes rather than starting from scratch every time? And this does apply to our audience as well. It is great to innovate, but what about sustainability? How do we make sure that this does not become another forgotten initiative or a cemetery, as I started my presentation, but rather something that's used and enjoyed by a broader community, one that might even want to take on the journey with us? One of our ongoing projects today is to enhance our communication. And for that, I've asked the help of the DataLab, which is, yes, another lab at the BnF, but this one supports projects using participatory methods, and they excel in facilitating collective intelligence and making sure that the project management is centered on our users' needs. In that spirit, we also conducted a questionnaire, and you're more than welcome if you want to fill in the questionnaire, but it's in French, because we have, I think, a simple goal, but it's still powerful. We want to start with our users' needs, and then we want to bring together colleagues from various departments to improve our services. Because we want to ensure that everything that was produced so far, because it's been 3 years now, so produced by the BnF Data Lab, our colleagues, the researchers, engineers, is fully valued and recognized. Because the BnF Data Lab isn't just about us, it's a collective story. And this is why I'm really happy to be here today giving a talk in the context of the summer school. I hope it's been a fruitful experience for all of you. And whether we're talking about a lab, an institution, or researcher, our goal is to give you the tools and the inspiration to work with our digital collections so we can all keep the momentum going. Thank you.